This video was sponsored by Squarespace.
Growing up, my favorite genre of all time was fantasy. Whether that was fantasy movies, fantasy TV shows, fantasy video games, and especially fantasy books. Fantasy used to be my favorite genre. It's the reason I became a reader, and it's the reason I started this channel. But over the last year or so, it's become quite stale for me. So you might be thinking, Ian, what are you going to do? What I've done is recruited the help of 3 really good friends, who also just happen to be fantasy experts. I've enlisted their help to assist me in getting me back into my favorite genre. But there are some personal stakes involved. If this doesn't work, maybe fantasy really isn't for me anymore. So this video really is coming down to the test of my identity as a reader. So enough of me babbling, let's see if I can't get myself out of this reading slump with the help of a few good friends. Starting with...
My good friend Ian has asked me for a book recommendation in order to get him into fantasy, and there are 2 ways we can go about this, the easy or the fun way. So we're going with the fun way, which is to become a detective in order to understand which are the best books for Ian. I asked him for his Goodreads account, and after analyzing, we don't really have the same taste, which puts me on a tight spot here. But there are 3 recommendations that I believe we're gonna go. The first one, it's a difficult one because the previous book from this author, Ian actually did not like. It was a 3 stars for him, and for me it's a 5-star read. It's a masterpiece, and that is Piranesi. For the hard, difficult recommendation, we are gonna go with Jonathan Strange and Mr. Morel. One of those books that fantasy nerds consider kind of difficult, a lot of footnotes, prose is quite meandering. All in all, it's a very slow book, but I absolutely loved it. I think it was magic from the beginning, and I loved it. Although it leans more towards this historical side of fantasy plus fairies, which I'm not sure is something that he's gonna like. But the second recommendation, it's an easy one that I believe is going to be a 5 stars for him, because in one hand I know that he already enjoyed this author's previous work, because with Lycaonius he gave it 4 stars. I also rated it with 4.5. I really enjoyed it, and he hasn't read yet the masterpiece that this author has released since then, which is The Wheel of the Many, a 5-star book for me. Absolutely fantastic. There's a blend of genres, the prose, the writing style, everything. It's so enticing. I know he's gonna love these. But then we have the must recommendation, the one that it's the best as well, and I'm not sure which one of these 3 we're actually gonna get. We're probably gonna leave these to luck, because he hasn't yet read the best fantasy standalones of all time, that is The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang, which is incredible. This is a story, very emotional, character driven, elemental magic. I've never cried more with this story in my life. I think what this book managed with me, it's incredible. Like it emotionally kidnaps you. I believe he should read these. So now we only have to decide out of these 3 options, the complex, the easiest, and the best one, which is the one that we are going to be recommending. Between these 2, which one? We're gonna leave it to you, Ian, to decide. I personally believe you should read both, but if you need to choose, perhaps Sword of Kaigen is the one that I really, really want you to read, because I kind of know that you are eventually gonna read this one. It's a must read. You already enjoy the author, so let me know what you think about it.
The book that I did pick was Sword of Kaigen. I own all 3 of these books, but the one that you convinced me to read the most was Sword of Kaigen. Somebody sent me this book like a year ago, and I've been trying to come up with an excuse to just sit down and read it. Perfect timing. Couldn't have planned it better myself. And I am already a huge chunk in. I'm on page 140. And I haven't filmed anything for it. It's one of those books that I just want to skip everything in my daily routine just so I can read this book. Mesmerized. I'm already mesmerized with this book. So thank you so much, Isa. So the way this is going to work, each book, I'm going to do 3 things. I'm going to rank it against what I desire in fantasy. And the 3 things that I desire most is 1, soft magic system. I prefer the magic in a fantasy to take a back seat. I don't need the people or the world to be overly magical. Some series it works for me, some books it works for me, but I prefer overall a softer magic system. I don't need magic explained to me. I don't really care about the ins and outs of certain things. 2, I don't need over-the-top world building. Some of my favorite fantasy books and series have had subtle world building, where world building is done mainly through dialogue. It's not done through crazy exposition on the author's part. Things just kind of slowly over time paint a broad, complete, and full picture. And not everything is explained in a way that feels like it's a textbook. And third, and honestly, this is probably the most important aspect for me, is character first. I'm looking for amazing characters, where the characters feel so authentic, so genuine, so perfect for this world and this story. So that's what I'm looking for in all three of these books. Let's see if Sword of Kaigen gets us there. Guys, this book is insane. To help me formulate my thoughts, I need to talk to you for a little bit about today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs and those looking to build a business online. They have hundreds of layout options and absolutely everything is customizable. Squarespace makes it so incredibly easy to engage with your audience online while simultaneously simplifying the process of how you can promote and sell whatever kind of content and or products you're trying to push online. It's all in one place and it's all on your terms. Squarespace's new Design AI empowers you to create a bold, beautiful, and perfect dream website from scratch, and it's all with just a click of a button. If you're ready to give Squarespace a shot today, head on over to squarespace.com to start a free trial, or head on over to squarespace.com/IanGubeli to get 10% off your first website or domain. The freaking Sword of Kaigen. People, I cannot hold this off any longer. This book, I think I'm already getting out of my fantasy slump, but this is just one book of three, so let's bear with each other. I've been so excited about reading this book that I've literally forgotten to film. And that's not like me. If I'm doing a reading vlog, I really try to stay on top of it for you guys so that you can get a mix match of live reaction, experience, and also commentary. But this book, I've just been sucked into. The Sword of Kaigen, dual POV. On one hand, we're following Mamoru, who is the son of this legendary sword fighting family. He is to inherit the bloodline sword warrior techniques while also living up to the mandate that his family has a duty to defending the empire. On the other hand, we're following his mother, Misaki. Misaki has a past that no one in her family knows about, not even her husband. I don't know how to talk about her without giving anything vital away, but let's just say in her past, when she was younger, she was on some vigilante antics. And I quite literally mean that. She was a vigilante. But she married into this family, and essentially, her entire role was just to make babies. And literally that's it. Her duties end right there. She's not even really supposed to raise them if she doesn't want to, just to have babies. At first, this world felt, it was like I was reading Shogun all over again. It felt like it was 17th century Japan. That's different. That's already more interesting than most fantasy that's set in like medieval Europe. Until I realized it was urban fantasy when a character used the phrase TV. Television. Okay, I didn't know samurais watched television. On top of all of this, we have one of the most intriguing magic systems I've ever read. And it's not necessarily like this broken down, scientific, systematic magic. It feels a lot like Avatar: The Last Airbender. I am very far in. Well, I'm almost halfway. I'm on page 234. I'm already so invested in the characters. I love Misaki and I love Mamoru. I need to get it back. So, catch you on the flip side. What's going on? Somebody explain this to me. I'm over halfway in. What are we sitting at? We're sitting at page 368. 368 pages in. Okay, what is happening? I need to formulate my thoughts. Stuff's hitting the fan. Like royally. The thing is, as the reader, I knew it was coming a mile away just because the introduction of a character like Kwang Chul-hee. And then, of course, getting a little glimpse into the past life of Misaki. These two things, we knew shiz was going to hit the fan. I didn't think it hit this hard. I read 2 chapters back to back. Well, no, it was the same chapter, I think, where 2 huge tragedies happen like simultaneously. And I'm not saying like tragedies of like, Ian, don't give away the plot. I'm not giving away the plot. But 2 horrible things happen. And by the end of that chapter, I was like, what? What? I have read enough fantasy. I've read enough fiction in general to know when an author kind of does something unexpected like this, you're usually like, okay, everything's okay. Everything is fine. I've read chapters since that moment. Where's the resolution? Where is the resolution, Emma Wong? There's no possible way things could get any worse. And then it does. What? I'm speechless. Most authors string you along and you kind of see things coming and you're like, okay, it's going to be fine in the end. Is everything going to be fine? You built me up. You built me up just to tear me right back down. And now I gotta deal with the consequences. Really, thank you so much, Isa. This is this is quite a delight to read. Thank you. I'm actually having a really good time, if you couldn't tell. Well, folks, I finished The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. I have no words. I have no idea what to tell you. I think I left my heart there on Takayubi. My goodness. It was just so good. I didn't want to read a fantasy that was like any other fantasy. So, did it fulfill what I wanted? First of all, the magic. I said I was a soft magic system guy. This is not soft magic, but this magic was so much more interesting to me than anything else that I've read in fantasy in a very long time. I think it's because it reminded me a lot of Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's all elemental magic. It feels so natural. Honestly, the story would feel completely different. It would be lesser if the magic wasn't what it was. The world building. The world building was amazing. I feel like I understand the geopolitical aspects of this entire region of this world. I think because a lot of it feels familiar. It's almost as if Emma Wong based this off of a certain aspect of East Asia where the cultures don't like each other. In the 613 pages that make up this book, beginning of the book to the end of the book, the world building was done and it wasn't rushed. And the best part is she didn't explain any of this through expository storytelling. It was all displayed through conversations between characters. And then overall, the characters. As a character first reader, did the characters hold up? Absolutely. I fell in love with Masaki. I fell in love with Mamoru. I learned to like Takeru. I loved Setsuko. I felt for Hiyori. I loved the children. I really adored Atsushi and his father. I loved all of these characters. This book had everything, and it's a 5-star read. It's a 5-star book. Expectations obliterated. Now I will hold everything to the standard. I want more fantasy like this. I don't know how I'm going to move on, but we're moving on to the next recommendation.
Hi, Ian. So the book that I want to recommend you is The Invincible by Stanisław Lem. The reason I'm recommending it to you is because Polish propaganda. You know, we have to spread the fame of the Poles. And that was a joke. And then the second reason is because I genuinely think you would really like it. It's this classic science fiction fantasy sort of book, which is so interesting because it's written in an almost modern style. There's this mystery going on. It's like a thriller of the spaceship going to this planet that its other spaceship was already supposed to have landed on, but then when they land, they realize that this planet that's supposed to be inhabitable actually isn't, and that the other spaceship is gone. It's kind of a mystery thriller trying to figure out what happened, but it's rooted in like real world science. And I'm not going to spoil exactly what it is, but Lem literally predicted like a technology that we are developing right now, and this was written like the 60s in Poland. And so yeah, I hope that you really enjoy it, and I can't wait to see what you think. Bye-bye!
Guys, the worst possible thing could have happened. As I was going through the motions of editing this video and looking through all of the footage, I realized something. Every single piece of footage that I had that documented my time with reading this book, it's gone. It's completely gone. I have no commentary. I have no montage. The montage you're going to see is a total recreation. This is just me sitting in different places reading this book. But I've already read it. And I'm going to try my best to reconstruct all of my thoughts. It's going to be a little hazy, but bear with me. This really sucks. I want to do my best because this book was actually a very good recommendation. So thank you, Vera, so much. Before I get going, The Invincible. All right, The Invincible by Stanisław Lem. Where to begin? Classical science fiction. It's one of those books that's both entertaining and thought-provoking at the same time, as all good science fiction should be. Now you're probably wondering, Ian, why did Vera give you a recommendation of science fiction? I'm very happy that she did, because to me, science fiction and fantasy are two halves to the same coin. So this could not have been a better recommendation. Plus, oh, it's so short. It was such a blessed relief to read this in between. Both of those books took me like 3 weeks to read each. This took me just one. What is the Invincible? The interstellar spacecraft known as Condor has gone silent after it lands on a planet known as Regis 3. Condor's sister ship Invincible is then sent out to investigate why Condor went silent in the first place on this foreign planet. Everything in this story we see through the eyes of the navigator Rohan. And he's the kind of person that's like set to the task of coordinating the search and rescue efforts of the crew of the Condor. But the thing is, Regis 3 is desolate. Just look at that. That man's going insane. The other some of the retro covers of this book, it's like, what are we getting ourselves into? I mean, this planet has like no vegetation. It has strange sea creatures in its waters. This book starts out as hard science fiction. It quickly enters into something deeper and mysterious. And as this mystery deepens, Lem starts questioning life and intelligence and the boundaries of what those things actually mean. Unlike most contemporary science fiction novels of his day, Lem does not let this book wander from the plot and it eventually becomes some philosophical treatise. He adeptly ties the philosophical questions. He ties answers to those questions to the action as the story develops. What I also found very unique about this novel as compared to some others from the 50s and 60s is that most of the questions the authors ask turn inward, and they speculate about the inward parts of humanity, whereas Lem, he's branching those questions outward. The freaking action and the stuff that happens in this book is terrifying. Like literally, it is scary. And I wasn't expecting a single bit of it, really. Once I finished the first chapter and it ends with this sentence, then when the sun had definitively dropped to the west, a black rain began to fall on the desert. I knew I was in for something ominous. And honestly, at the heart of it, quite scary. And I think the thing that makes this book quite terrifying, I think it's the pervading sense of loneliness among all of the characters. Even despite working and living together on Invincible, Rohan and the crew stand apart from one another. When I read this, Ashlynn was away on a girls' trip, and she was, filming content with some other creators, and I was here just reading this book. So it kind of added to the sense of like, man, this is just a very lonely, dark story. Now, I can't talk about magic in this book because, well, there is none. It's purely hard science fiction. But when it comes to the world building, spectacular. This planet feels so unique. It feels so different. Like when the Invincible landed on a sand dune, I thought, oh my gosh, Dune? Seriously? More sand planets? Why is every planet in science fiction always a sand planet? I quickly had to shut my mouth because that's not what this planet is at all. There's vivid description of this place, but at the same time you feel the vastness and the emptiness and the futility of it all. And when it came to the characters, it had a lack of character development, but that's on purpose, I feel. The lack of character development reduces the emotional impact when the terrible things happen. And I don't think Lem was trying to write a character-first story. I think he was trying to write a speculative novel, and it just so happened to have characters in it. I'm gonna give it a 3.5. It just felt there's something lacking in the translation. I love the philosophy, and I love the questions that are posed. I'm definitely going to read more Lem novels now because that was a great introduction. I think I've rambled long enough. Let's get to the third book, shall we?
I can't believe I am on Ian Gubeli's channel. Now, I do want to apologize to your viewers that I don't match the crazy vibe that usually you have Ian, but I can put this on my hat to kind of make me feel like I'm fitting a bit more into the aesthetic of this channel. But one thing that I do know is a bit about fantasy. I have fantasy here, I have fantasy here, I have fantasy here, I have fantasy here. Even behind this mess, I have fantasy. But I feel like it's such an immense responsibility to try and recommend a book that will help someone fall in love with fantasy again. So I'm gonna give you 2 recommendations. Firstly, I want to recommend one of my favorite books of all time, Illborn. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars, and I'm not only recommending it because my name is on the back here, but I do think you might absolutely love this book because it is reminiscent of like John Gwynne, and it's very, very character-driven epic fantasy, which I know you love. And if you're considering reading this book, try maybe just reading the prologue. I think that might be enough to hook you. It is so good. The second book is amazing, and the third book literally came out I think a month ago. Would definitely recommend. But I also know that you like literary works and these masterpieces of fiction, and therefore I want to recommend, and it's not fantasy kinda, but it is Hyperion by Dan Simmons, my favorite book of last year. This is a literary masterpiece inspired by the Canterbury Tales. And what is so incredible about this book is that it's a single story, but it kind of reads like an anthology. We follow 6 or 7 different characters on a spaceship going to a planet called Hyperion, and they just know they're connected, but we don't know how. And then in turn, they go around and tell their life story of how they ended up on this spaceship. And each story is so different, so fantastically written, and it's so beautiful. So if you want something that will literally blow your mind, then Hyperion is the world for you. But if you want some beautiful, solid, character-driven epic fantasy, then Illborn is for you as well. I really hope you love one of these.
Okay, so the book that I've chosen from Johan, it was a hard debate, not gonna lie. I had to go with Illborn. I'm already a pretty good pace in. I'm on chapter 7 on page 103. This book is so intriguing. Not too much fantasy has religious intrigue. There's this church that serves as kind of the ecclesiastical authority. You know, you kind of do what they say. On top of that, we're following 4 main POVs. Just starting with the prologue was wild. That prologue sent me. In this medieval world that's threatened by war and like religious persecution because that church I mentioned is crazy, 2 young men and 2 young women are starting to develop supernatural powers. All 4 of these characters have each had the same dream. In each instance, something crazy has happened. I haven't read a fantasy novel with this strong of intrigue. It's so long. I mean, besides Sword of Kaigen. Sword of Kaigen got me like first chapter. When it comes to like medieval fantasy, all day long, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for. This is the biggest book of the bunch. It is over 700 pages, and I have a week to finish this before I have to do something else. I'm on page 206, flying through these pages. Brother, boy, does this book have something. Daniel T. Jackson's been very good at keeping us consistently moving through each POV. What I really enjoy is how he doesn't try to linger on timing. And what I mean by that is like the 4 or 5 chapters that I just read, he progressed each person's story by months. And I've really enjoyed that. He's not pumping the brakes, man. He's pedal to the metal on this pacing. But the character work is there. I'm really enjoying each character and the things that they're going through because there's a mystery surrounding these dreams. There's a mystique. There's a mystique around the world building of each person and what they're experiencing from these dreams and the special abilities that are slowly forming within them. And I have some theories, but I don't know if I should tell you because I don't want to spoil anything. As far as the world building's great because the world building has been done through POVs and discussion. It flows better because the characters are the ones learning things and saying things. And so the world building comes through the characters. Check mark on that aspect. When it comes to magic, I mean, there's really none. Purely medieval world, but I think the magical aspects are going to come. That is our progress so far, and I'm stoked to keep going. We gotta talk about this book, y'all. Illborn. The magic is blowing my mind, and it's not even like really magic. It's more like powers. When they're recalled to memory, time slows, and they're able to do these really incredible things. It's so bloody fascinating. So far, I think the intrigue behind the magical aspects of this fantasy world is my favorite aspect. Like I think I'm liking it more than the character work, and I say that because I'm only really fond of 2 characters. It's been a long day of reading. I don't know if you can tell how far I've made it, but I'm almost halfway because I can't put this book down. Like, I feel like the pace has really reached a stride, and now I'm just in it. I gave it about 2 chapters for each POV before I really started forming an opinion, but by that time I was like 130 pages deep. Stuff's about to get crazy because the wheels are turning, events are happening, and our characters are doing some crazy shite. I'm gonna go to bed. I'll see you tomorrow. Holy crap. Finally got to the second interlude. I just don't know what we're gonna do. All of these characters, the mounting momentum that the pace was setting has finally come to crashing crescendos. Everyone's up in the air. We have no idea what's going to happen with any of them, and it's exciting. I think my attitude has changed. Now my favorite POV is Liana. I think she's just the most interesting and the most intriguing. Her power is the thing that I'm most drawn to about her character, but also what's happening around her is the most interesting story. I gotta get back to this book. It's taken over my life, and I'm probably gonna have to buy the next two. Aren't I? Darn you, Johan, darn you. Dude, making leaps and bounds through this bad boy. Holy cow, what are we at? 497 of 701. Excellent. These people truly are ill-born, aren't they? They just were given the darndest lot in life. Korn went headfirst into a stupid scenario. I have a hunch how he's going to get out of it, but I really don't know what the cost is going to be. Alana, she kind of deserves to be where she's at. But Arian just showed up from his military service. He's getting roped in to something. He just shouldn't do it. And then, last but not least, Liana. She's been through so much. There's been a lot of plot and character development going along with her POV, and she's still, to me, the most interesting, I think. I was curious when any of these four characters met one another or were around one another. I was curious to see if they'd recognize each other from these dreams. And an interesting twist, Daniel T. Jackson surprised me with that. The one aspect of this book that I'm kind of getting a little bit burnt out with is the writing style. The prose is that kind of writing style that's somewhere in between flowery and simple. It's right there in the middle. It's a really happy medium between them both. There are times when I'm like, okay, I like this writing style. And then there's other times where I'm like, man, there could have been a little bit of a flourish there. And I know it's like, Ian, why are you complaining that there's no flourish? I don't know. Sometimes I really like lyrical writing. And here the prose does feel just a tad bit forced. It doesn't impede my experience with the book. I mean, as you can tell, right? I wouldn't get through nearly as much of this book as I have if the writing quality was so poor that I would actually probably put it down. Where's this book? Folks, I finished Illborn. Oh, did you hear that pop? That was my knee on the ground. Oh, I finished Illborn. The ending of this book, he pulled a John Gwen on me, where every single POV, everything's up in the air. You have no idea what's gonna happen. It makes you hungry for the sequel. And of course, I'm going to eventually finish this trilogy because I have a few questions. I have so many questions. Let's do what we've done with the other books. Magic. Can you even call it magic? It's not really magic, it's more abilities. It's these words of power that come to the mind of each character, and when these words enter the mind of each character, they're able to do things in a supernatural way that no other human could do. Amazing. It's honestly what kept the story and the characters interesting the entire time. When it comes to the world building itself is so character driven that without these people, the world doesn't exist. When it comes to a medieval setting, it's not the greatest I've ever read, but it's definitely not the poorest. Oh boy, have I read some awful, some dreadful medieval fantasy. This is somewhere right in the middle, and it's unique enough to stand out, but you know, it's not the world that I'm walking away going, wow, that was a really cool fantasy. No. I'm walking away going, these characters. The character work is the most important thing in this entire story. You can tell that Daniel T. Jackson wanted to write a character-driven story from the get-go, and he did. And he absolutely did. They are just morally gray enough to keep you empathizing with them and showing compassion, but also being royally pissed off when they do what they do. Sometimes they're really stupid, and then sometimes they're really sweet. I give this like a solid 4. The entire time I felt, yeah, I really want to pick this book up. I want to see what happens to these people. Now I'm absolutely going to get the sequels because, well, I gotta see what happens. And there you have it. There you have it. Fantasy experts recommended me books to read, and I read them. You're probably thinking, Ian, are you gonna give us more fantasy content now? Have you gotten out of that slump? Have you discovered your love and your flame for fantasy? I would say I have. I honestly would say I have, and I'm excited to read a lot of fantasy now. I'm not gonna just go full bore into it because that's honestly how I got in the slump in the first place. With this video, honestly, without Isa and without Vera and without Johan, this video doesn't exist. Remember to go to each one of their channels, subscribe to each one of their channels, and show them some love. Tell them Ian sent you. Obviously, they recommend some pretty good books, don't they? I'd say so. And before you click off the video, remember, if you're interested in Squarespace, head on over to squarespace.com to start a free trial today, or head on over to squarespace.com/IanGubeli and get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain when you use the code in the description down below. Without further ado, folks, I'm gonna get back to reading some good books, and I'll see you